bring you back to the first meeting of the Digital Youth Council. It actually made history because there's never been a council of the sort in in Europe before. I know England has something similar coming along the line, but we beat them to it. So it happened on the 25th of August last year. Not last year, 25th last August, and it began with a presentation with Harry McCann. And he just outlined his hopes and aspirations for the Digital Youth Council, where he wanted to go and where he had gotten the idea. We also got a presentation from Kieran Cannon, TED, who outlined Ireland's landmark success in Code Week last year. I'm sure all of you know this, but in Code Week EU last year, organised by Neely Cruz, Ireland actually held more coding events than any other country in Europe. And that's an achievement for a small country on the edge of Europe. And we actually did so well that we got a personal visit from Neely Cruz just to kind of mark our success in EU Code Week. And he asked the council to help get involved in making sure that we stay on top next year, and we will. There was also an open discussion amongst all the attendees on the future of the council. So this is where we kind of laid out our long-term and our short-term initiatives, stuff like the age range for the mini councils, which I'll be explaining now. After a very, very successful launch, we have after a very successful launch, we do have very ambitious plans for the future. So firstly, we have the launch of the Digital Youth Council mini councils. So these can be organised by schools or clubs in a local area, where it'll have members from about 8 years old to 17 years old, where they can discuss the use of digital technology in their area and in their education. So this is where smaller changes that just affect the area can actually be brought to light and changes made. And then anything that could have an effect on a national scale can then be reported back to the National Digital Youth Council and maybe rolled out across the country. Something else is a Young Tech Award. So this is just an award that goes to acknowledge someone who's really forging a new path in technology, a young person. So congratulations to Aidan Malloy, who was last month's recipient of the Young Tech Award. And congratulations to St. Peter's in Bray, who actually last week created the first ever mini council. Something else that is in the works, not quite there yet, is an online open forum on the Digital Youth Council website, where students can log on, share their views digitally, which I think is really fitting, given that it's the Digital Youth Council. So it just makes sense that they'll be giving their views digitally. Because we've only had one meeting, I can't exactly speak on what the opinions of the Digital Youth Council as a whole in the implementation of digital technology in education. But I do have some opinions myself, and these are opinions that I will be raising at future meetings of the Digital Youth Council. I think the first step is to draw a very fine line, definite line between coding and the use of digital technology. Unfortunately, the truth is that coding isn't for everyone. But the use of digital technology is something that is absolutely essential in education and in business and in sharing data and communicating data. So, one excuse that people might say is, we don't have to teach coding in schools because coding isn't for everyone, it's for people with a mathsy brain, or it's for this, or it's for that. The use of digital technology is completely universal. We're moving towards the digital age. Everyone's beginning to accept that, so it has to be implemented in education. Something else is appropriate use of resources. I don't think personally that the first step is to equip every student in Ireland with an iPad, although that was a very, very popular suggestion at the Excited event. And don't get me wrong, I'd love an iPad too. I think that possibly by equipping classrooms better with diverse technology, so projectors, interactive whiteboards, laptops. This way, the students are actually getting access to much more diverse technology. They mightn't have it personally, but they'll be able to use it in their classes, and this will just make their experience so much more diverse. The teaching of the use of digital technology, but particularly coding, is something that I've been thinking a lot about. It's completely acceptable that, say, an Irish teacher isn't going to want to take on the teaching of coding, because coding is something that you need to have a very strong understanding of to be able to teach. And I understand how schools mightn't want to use their resources to employ like a specialist coding teacher. So that's why I'd suggest implementing the Satellite Specialist project. This is someone who is trained in education of coding and education of computer science, and that might service a few schools in an area. So say 4 or 5 schools that are quite close to each other. If the satellite specialist spends a day in every school and covers every class in that school, that way the costs will be shared, the resources will be shared, but the education is still there and still accessible for students. So that's the actual teaching of digital technology and coding. But something I think could actually arm this and really improve and diversify this would be to increase the use of ICT in the learning experience. So this is integrating digital technology into education. It's not just teaching it, it's using it to teach. Because by doing that, the kids will just become so much more used to it. It'll become even more a part of their lives, even though digital technology is already really integrated into the lives of young people today. One final thing I'd like to speak about, slightly off topic. My teammates and I are in the final of the Google Science Fair. So we travel to California today week, so in exactly a week. And we are going to be competing in the Google's global headquarters in Mountain View in Silicon Valley. A major part of this competition is the Voters' Choice competition, and the voting for the Voters' Choice closes on Sunday. So I would really appreciate it if everyone in the room could maybe go to www.googlesciencefair.com and give us a vote, because every vote counts. And if you could tweet the link as well, because looking at the room of people here, I'm sure you all have combined like 10,000 followers on Twitter at least. So yeah, every vote counts, and we want to get the public of Ireland behind us. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to the Digital Youth Council, and yeah, we look forward to giving you more news in the future.